Welcome to Friday Focus. So we'll be doing the lesson, the fundamental unit of life, and this is our 6th lesson together. So today we learn about two other cell organelles, that is mitochondria and plastids. They are very important cell organelles, right? So we learn about their structure, their function, how they look under the microscope, how we can draw them well in a simple way, and also we'll step outside your textbook a bit and learn more about the significance of one of them, right? So what are we waiting for? Let's dive right in. First, let's learn about mitochondria. So this is these are the diagrams of a plant cell and an animal cell. And in them, can you see the mitochondria? Can you spot it? So here and here, you can see the mitochondrion, right? So the singular is mitochondrion, plural mitochondria. So from this diagram itself, what can you deduce the structure to be? Let's look into the structure. So over here, you can see a very simple diagram of the mitochondria and the parts are also labeled. So what can we make out? As usual, it has a double membrane covering, outer and inner membrane, and there is a peculiarity about inner membrane over here. You see, it is folded into crests. That is, the deep foldings are called as cristae. Right? Take care not to confuse cristae with cisternae. Cisternae is the stack, like Golgi apparatus. The membranous folds are stacked on top of the other, and those stacks are called as cisternae. And this is the inner membrane of the mitochondria are deeply folded, and these folds are called as cristae, right? Why do you think it has been folded that way? How does it help? Think about it, alright? So before that, let's look at the outer membrane. How is it? It is porous. Porous as in it contains a lot of little pores, like that of a sponge, right? It is a porous outer membrane, and the inner membrane is folded into cristae. Now, in mitochondria, the most vital function that happens is a chemical compound called as ATP is generated through various chemical reactions. So these chemical reactions need a lot of surface area to happen. Okay, so this surface area is provided by these foldings. That means the foldings increase the surface area of the inner membrane, thus helping the chemical reactions that generate ATP. Okay, now that is the function of the cristae. Now inside the cristae, inside the inner membrane, there is a matrix, that is a space within the inner membrane, and this matrix houses DNA and ribosomes, right? So mitochondria is a peculiar organelle that contains its own DNA. No other organelle except for the nucleus has its own DNA. So over here it has its own DNA. Which one? Mitochondria. And also ribosomes. So this means that they can make some of their own proteins independently. Right? So that is about the structure of mitochondria. Now let's come to its functions. So before that, the picture over here is that of the mitochondrion under the electron microscope. Right? So over here also you can see very clearly the matrix, the outer membrane and the cristae. Right? You can make it out. So now let's look at the functions of mitochondria. Mitochondria are called as the powerhouses of cells. So what does a powerhouse do? It generates energy. Right? So the same way, even mitochondria generates the energy for the cell to do its various chemical and mechanical functions. How is this energy released by mitochondria? In the form of ATP molecules. That we had discussed earlier in the earlier slide, right? ATP generating reactions need a lot of surface area, and that is given by the cristae. Right? So this ATP molecule is nothing but how energy is released by mitochondrial reactions. Okay, so that is why mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of cells, since they produce the energy required for the cell. So what exactly are these ATP molecules is our next question, right? So before we answer that, let us first step outside our science textbook for a while, right? Our science textbook says that mitochondria are the powerhouses of cell and therefore it's very important for the cell. But if we zoom out and see the bigger picture, mitochondria are much more than just powerhouses of cells. They are much more significant than just that. And to know the significance of anything, we first need to assess what would happen if we lose it or if it gets damaged, right? So let's just say that our mitochondria get damaged, right? More and more mitochondria in our cells, in our body gets damaged. So what happens eventually? A lot of symptoms and diseases develop which can differ in their severity. Sometimes the symptoms are mild, but it can also be severe and often life-threatening as well. Right? So depending on that, there are many effects of damaged mitochondria, which starts with low metabolism. That means our digestion slows down to a lot of extent. So this can result in obesity, diabetes, whatever. And then fatigue. You can experience chronic fatigue. That means you can be tired always. No matter how much sleep you get, you still feel tired. That is called fatigue. Then there might be pain, unexplained pain in certain parts of your bodies. Aging happens because our mitochondria lose the vigor. So if it is abnormally getting damaged, then it results in rapid aging, right? It also results in memory loss. If things get worse, it can even lead to Alzheimer's or dementia. And it can lead to many neurological disorders. It can affect the heart, kidney, thyroid. It can even lead to multiple sclerosis, in which, you gradually lose the functioning of all your organ systems. So that is the significance of mitochondria in our bodies. So what are the things that we need to avoid and we need to do to support the mitochondria in our body? First thing, over here you see certain food products. Do you think it's healthy? Well, some of them are point blank unhealthy, but some of them look very healthy to us. But in actual, these are all unhealthy because they're all packaged and it contains most ingredients in it are foreign to our body, and therefore our body doesn't know exactly what to do with them because they're all artificial, right? So we need to avoid such processed and packaged food at all costs. It's easier said than done, but we need to take care that it's reduced to bare minimum at least. Instead, we need to have our good old balanced meals, proper meals that are balanced in all the food groups. Then we need to include colors in our foods, include colorful vegetables and a lot of greens. It's said that we need to have at least 3 portions or 5 portions of greens every day in whatever form we are able to include them, right? And of course, because ATP generating reactions and those that require ATP are also, all these chemical reactions depend a lot on are aerobic. That means it depends a lot on oxygen, availability of oxygen in our body. And the easiest way to increase the availability of oxygen in our body is to exercise, be active, right? And to have breathing exercises also. So I know it sounds cliche, but just look at the benefits of exercise, right? Over here, it's specifically for children and teenagers. So it increases self-esteem, improves social well-being, it improves attention, decision-making, and, it reduces the risk of depression. Alright, so it also reduces anxiety. So it's basically good for your mental and physical health, right? It improves sleep, increases your decision-making, hence autonomy. And it can provide children with a more positive view of themselves. It makes you feel good and it makes you healthier, right? So it's got 2 effects. So for you being teenagers, being school students, the easiest way, you're lucky, the easiest way to get all this exercise is to play. So don't forget to include play in your routine, right? So now come back to our textbook and we had to answer an important question. Remember, what is ATP? Now, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Now, what does this mean? It consists of an organic compound called adenosine attached to a ribose sugar, which is in turn attached to 3 phosphate groups. Hence, it's called as adenosine triphosphate. Now, this molecule has a lot of energy kept inside it, right? So, it's called the energy currency of the cell, because whatever energy is stored in ATP, the body uses it to make new chemical compounds and for its mechanical work. Alright, so it is the currency that creates energy, or that gives energy to our cells, right? Now the next organelle that we are going to be studying about are plastids. Now there are many types of plastids, and broadly it can be classified into chromoplast and leucoplast. First, let's take chromoplast. The word chromo means color. So, chromoplasts are those plastids which have colorful pigments in them. Alright. So, the most important chromoplast is the chloroplast, because it has the pigment, green pigment called chlorophyll, which helps the plants to in photosynthesis. So, it forms the backbone by helping the plant to make food, right, of plants. That's why the most important chromoplast is chloroplast. There are also other chromoplasts based on the pigments present inside. So there is pheoplast, which has the pigment fucoxanthin, which gives the yellow or brown color to parts of plants, right? Then there are rhodoplast. Phycoerythrin is the pigment that is contained inside rhodoplast, and it's red in color. Then there are chromatophores, which has got phycocyanin and phycobilins as the pigments, which colors them light blue, right? So these are the different types of chromoplasts. So from this itself, we can make out that these plastids are only present in photosynthetic eukaryotes, because only they need all these pigments, right, for their functioning. Now, also another type of plastids are the leucoplasts. Okay, now these are the storage plastids. Their function is to store substances. So, leucoplasts that store starch are called as amyloplasts, that store lipids are called as elaioplasts, and that store proteins are called as proteinoplast. So, but then there is no need to get overwhelmed by these many types of plastids. The only plastids that are mentioned in your textbook are chromoplasts, chloroplasts, and leucoplasts. So remember what they are. Chromoplasts are plastids that contain colorful pigments. Chloroplast is the chromoplast that's got the pigment chlorophyll, and leucoplasts are storage plastids, and they store starch, lipid, and proteins, right? So let's take the most important plastid, that is the chloroplast, and look at its structure. It's got a peculiar structure, see? So it has got, as usual, an outer and inner membrane, 2 layers, that is outer membrane and inner membrane, and between them here in chloroplast there is a space called as intermembrane space. Now inside the inner membrane there is a matrix as usual, which is called stroma, right? So in stroma, can you spot the stroma over here, the yellow part, right? So inside the stroma, the most obvious structures that you can see are disc-shaped structures. They are called as thylakoid. Now these discs are also grouped, and these groups are called as grana, right? And grana are connected by stroma lamellae, which is also membranous in nature. Now all these structures are present in matrix. Also the matrix, like the mitochondria, houses its own DNA, ribosomes, and enzymes. So, plastids and mitochondria are the only organelles besides nucleus that contain their own DNA, right? So, hence over here we can, it's obvious that even plastids can make some of their own proteins, right? Because they have all the materials needed, that is DNA and ribosomes and enzymes. So that is the structure of chloroplast. Now, what is its function? We all know. It helps in photosynthesis. Now, over here, you can see the electron microscope images of all the types of plastids that we discussed. So the first one, the biggest one, is the chloroplast. You can see all the structures that we discussed, right? The grana, that has tagged thylakoids, the double membrane, the stroma, and all of it lies inside the cell cytoplasm. Then etioplast, you can see on top in the second picture, amyloplast on the bottom, right? So on the top, you can see the plastids are housing lipid, and in the bottom, you can see they're housing starch. Now let's come back to the cells. Can you spot the plastids in the plant cell and animal cell? There, that is the chloroplast, and that is the amyloplast in the plant cell. And in animal cell, we already discussed, it's not present. So plastids are present only in photosynthetic eukaryotes. Eukaryotes that carry out photosynthesis, right? Why isn't it said that only plants contain plastids? Because there are some bacteria and algae also which survive by photosynthesis. So those are able to do photosynthesis because of the presence of plastids inside them, right? So that's it for today's class. What did we learn? We learned about mitochondrion, its significance for both the cell as well as for us as organisms. And we also stepped out of our textbook and learned how to keep them healthy so that we can be healthy. And then we learned about its structure, its function. We learned that they are powerhouses and that they give out the energy currency, that is the ATP. We learned about ATP as well, adenosine triphosphate, and why we call it energy currency. And finally, we also learned about the plastids, the different types of plastids and their structure, chloroplast structure. And also we saw their pictures how they look under the electron microscope. So that's it for today. And we learned that it's not present in animal cells, right? So that's it for today. Thank you all.